6th, and we're in Dean Schoengert's home, who will be the interviewer, and we are interviewing a Mr. George E. Perry.
No, Robert.
Robert E. Perry. I was thinking of your brother, Robert E. or your cousin, Robert E. Perry. And Mr. Perry was born July 1, 1926, so you're going to be 77 years old this year.
Right.
Tell us about your military experience. How did you get started?
Well, I wanted to enlist in the Navy. I always, for some reason, wanted to be in the Navy, and I wanted to be a gunner's mate, which I accomplished both. And I enlisted when I was still 17, and I enlisted down at Topeka at the post office. And then they sent us to Kansas City down there to take our, part of our physical and sign forms, and we ended up going to Leavenworth for our physical. And then we come back, and I never signed my name so much in all my life. And finally, when they got through with everything, they swore us all in. Near as I can remember, there was probably over 100 of us at the time that got sworn in all together. And then they sent us home for, I think, 10 days, and then I went to...
Was that all Navy? 100 was all Navy?
All Navy, because there at Kansas City where we enlisted with nothing but Navy personnel. But the Army gave us our physical at Leavenworth. Mm-hmm. And then we went to Great Lake, Illinois for boot camp training. And we got up there, I guess we got to the train station up there probably about 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and they unloaded us, and it was really hot. And then they lined us up, and I think they double timed us about 5 miles, and everybody was falling out. They couldn't make it. And then I spent, I guess it would be 12 weeks boot camp at Great Lakes. And then we got to come home on leave for 9 days. Reported back up there, and they sent us to Boston, Massachusetts at the Wells Fargo building up there.
At boot camp, was there any kind of training on a ship at all, or was it
No, sir. At boot camp, the only time I was on the water, we had one day. They took us out on the lake, and we rowed a whale boat, which would probably been probably a dozen of us or so, and that was my first experience in a boat. And the fact is, it was my first experience ever trying to row a boat, and you can about imagine what we was doing. But other than that, was the only time I was on the water. But we spent a terrible lot of time marching, and then a lot of calisthenics, and we had to pass swimming lessons. When they give you your swimming test, we had to jump off of near as I can remember, about a 50-foot tower. And you jump in feet first. You had to put your hands underneath your armpits, and the pool, I don't know how deep it was, but you went clear to the bottom. And then when you come back to the top, you had, I can't remember, I think we had to swim 100 feet after we come up. I made it the first time, but the last probably 20, 25 feet, I didn't know I was going to make it. You was pretty well pooped out by the time.
Did you know how to swim before you got up there?
All the swimming I'd ever done when I was a kid was in a creek, and I knew how to swim, but I wasn't no good swimmer. But the reason you had to swim so far, they said if you're aboard ship and you got sunk and you had to abandon ship, you had to be able to swim so far to get away from the suction that the ship would draw you down under the ground if you couldn't get your distance.
Were you swimming with all your uniform on, your boots and everything?
No, just swimming trunks, all we had on.
This was all Great Lakes we're talking about still.
Yep. And while we was up there, we had to climb ropes hand over hand. Seemed like to me we had to climb that. That rope was 50 feet in the air, and you couldn't use your feet. All you could do was just your hands and arms, and that was quite an experience too. But
then you went to Boston?
Yeah, but my I think my worst experience when I was in boot camp was learning how to wash clothes. I mean, that was a job by itself. But after you got the hang of it, it wasn't so bad. But then after that, well, you know, you had, what the heck they call that? Flying 5 or something, boy, you went through, and one end they give you a $5 bill, and you walk down the aisle, and then they'd give you a razor and soap, and at the end of it, you got $2 back. And that was the end of that. In fact, that was the only money we got all the time I was in boot camp that I remember. Well, I think that pretty well takes care of. Well, in boot camp we had firing range, and they'd give so much. Well, I forget. I did one test that they said I qualified to be on a submarine. It was something that you had to go down in the water, and you was down, and then be able to hold your breath long enough to get up top. I guess that about takes care of boot camp. Then we had a 9-day leave and went back, and they sent us on a troop ship to Boston, Massachusetts at the Fargo building up there. And we was there for a while waiting orders to go someplace else, and they, I think it was the day we left Boston. I don't remember what month was, but it was snowing and it was cold, and they put us on I'd call it a cattle car, and they sent us to Norfolk, Virginia. We rode that train all night. There was no heat into it. We did not get anything to eat. We got down there at Norfolk, it was sometime during the morning. Had to ride a ferry across the bay, and then we finally got to the base, and breakfast was already over with, and they had never started lunch, so I don't remember they give us a cup of coffee, maybe an apple and an orange, and we hadn't eaten from the day before at noon. And then we went at noon for chow, and we come back and they said, "Don't unpack your sea bags, you're going on." And just as soon as your orders come in, well, we sat there on the dock clear until about 6 o'clock that night. Finally, the orders come in, and they sent us to.
How many are we talking about on it?
Well, there was 24 of us then. They sent us on to Shell Beach, Louisiana, which was about 30 miles or so out of New Orleans, out there on Lake Pontchartrain. Well, Shell Beach was a big gunnery, was a gunnery school, what it was. And, oh, what the heck, I think we probably rode a train to get to New Orleans probably all night and all the next day, and I think we got to New Orleans probably the next evening. But, or maybe it was longer than that. I can't remember, but anyhow, the last meal we had on the train, evidently they thought we hadn't had enough exercise. Somebody put Epsom salt in some jelly, and it gave us all the diarrhea about the time we got off the train. And if we didn't have the time, they put us on a ferry to take us across the bay to Algiers and to spend the night. And I said, boy, that was the night you'll remember the rest of your life. Then the next day they sent us out to Shell Beach, and when I got out there, I was what you call on general detail. That was just cleaning the barracks and hauling trash off and one thing and another. And I wanted the gunnery division, and I finally got them talked into that I could take a class with the trainees that they come in, and that's how I learned to be a gunner's mate. And by the time I left there, I had got third class gunner's mate. And when I left Shell Beach, they sent me back to Boston, Massachusetts again.
What kind of guns were you training?
Down there, I was on 20 millimeter anti-aircraft guns. I was on some 30s and 50 millimeter guns, but mostly I was qualified on 20 millimeter. And after I got through going to school down there, I was a gunnery instructor down there. I taught I think for about a month I had a crew on a gun from Russia. I can't remember exactly how many of them boys I had, but there had to be something like 12, 14 of them, and none of them could speak English. And all you did on breaking the gun down to show them if it's misfired, you could look at the position that the recoil was in, and you could tell what happened to the gun. And all you could do was just point to them and show them where everything stopped and what to look for, which they was real good boys to have. Fact is, some of them of an evening would come to our barracks and would visit with them as much as we could. I remember one of the boys, he was in the Navy too, and he hadn't been home for 7 years. And he was hoping that he'd get to go home when he got through down there, which I don't know if he did or not. But and then after that, they sent me back to Boston, Massachusetts again, and there was just one other boy with me when we went up there, and we caught an APA out of Boston, went to Guantanamo Bay, Cuba, and I got on the ship that I was assigned to, which was a destroyer, 835 Charles P. Cecil. It was a brand new ship. It was on a shakedown cruise, and we spent our shakedown cruise there in Cuba with I don't know, there were 2 or 3 submarines in the division that we'd go out and play war games.
By shakedown cruise, you mean
Yeah,
just checking out the ship?
right. See if everything was in working order. And I guess you might say everybody was new on the ship to, get the hang of it. Now, that was my first experience being on a ship. So, when I was going from Boston to Cuba on that APA, the ocean was rough, and I never did get seasick, but boy, my stomach done a lot of turning. But once I got over that, it never did bother me again. And when we got through with the shakedown cruise, we went back to New York, and we were just up there, maybe 3 or 4 days. I took on supplies, and then we left there and went to Norfolk, Virginia. One of the sites up there, when we pulled into New York, we went past the Statue of Liberty, and that we pulled out of there at night, and I went by it when it was lit up at night, which was a pretty sight. We spent just a little time at Norfolk, wasn't too long, and then we went to Gulfport, Mississippi for Navy Day. We spent probably 10 days there. They let the civilians come on and you give them a tour of the ship and stuff. Then we left there and went to Pensacola, Florida. I think it was. Anyhow, there was a big Navy Air base there. We wasn't there too long, and we left there and went through the Panama Canal. There was another experience. It took us from daylight till dark to get through the Panama Canal, and that was another experience you will never forget. I did pull Liberty on the Atlantic side in Panama. That was a pretty wild town to be in. We got over on the Pacific side. We pulled Liberty that night. Heck, it must have been going on 9 o'clock at night, because it was dark when they decided to let us have some liberty if we wanted it. And we was anchored way out in the bay, and we had to ride a whaleboat. Near as I can remember it, near as I can remember, it was must have been about 10, 15 miles to shore. And we got over there, and there happened to be a little beer tavern just right up off of the beach, and we got to drink one beer, and we had to turn around and go back to get back in time. And being that we was anchored out into the bay, there was no gangway to walk down, so they throwed one of them rope ladders over the side, and I think everybody should try to climb one of them once in his life. That was another experience. But then we left there and we went to San Diego. And probably didn't spend very long there. And then we left there and went on to Pearl Harbor. When we got down there at Pearl Harbor, it must have been we left Pearl Harbor probably. I can't remember whether we had Thanksgiving in Pearl or where, but anyhow we left there going to Japan. And we pulled out of the harbor down there at Pearl, and the sea got rough, and she was rough all the way. Fact is, it got so bad that we couldn't even go down into the mess hall and eat. It got to rolling so bad that everything. It was, well, one night we did a 67-degree roll and was eating supper. All the food and the trays of dishes and cups. Fact is, that night there was a kid coming from the galley carrying, I think, 2 or 3 trays of cups, and they broke every one of them. It was just about like a hog pen when the guy got out of there. So that was the last meal we got, other than coffee and sandwiches and apples and oranges, until we got to Tokyo. And it was really rough. And I got into Tokyo Harbor Christmas Eve of 1945. And they was expecting a big, the Japanese was going to maybe try and cause some trouble. And boy, they had guards posted all over that ship from one end to the other, but nothing ever happened. And we spent probably 6 months over there just patrolling up and down the coast. I was at Wakayama, where they dropped the atomic bomb. We did not get, they wouldn't let us go ashore, but what you could see, there wasn't nothing left of the city. Pulling Liberty into Tokyo, that was my first Liberty. Me and 2 other boys went in there, and there sure wasn't much left of it. And their shopping center, like about all you seen what they sold for food was fish, and all that was that their fish was just piled on some boards, on some trusses, just out in the open. Flies, the glory be around them. I don't know how they could survive the way things was. But I know we spent, me and my two buddies spent a big share of the day just sightseeing. And finally, we had to use the bathroom, and we kept looking for one and looking for one, and we finally found one in an old train depot. And we went in there, and we didn't pay any attention. All it was just a trough with water running down through it. And when we got through, we turned around to leave, and there was three girls standing right behind us waiting their turn, 'cause everybody used the same bathrooms over there. And really, after we was there for a while, you'd watch the people, and if they was downtown or walking along and they had to go use the bathroom, they just stepped off the sidewalk and did it. It was kind of amazing, to see something like that happen, but I guess they didn't think anything about it. I guess that's the way they grew up, or they did. And then
Were there two of you on leave in Tokyo, and you walked around?
There was three of us.
And you weren't afraid of anything.
No, they didn't bother you. There was another thing that when we was we had to ride a train for a ways to get into Tokyo, and you'd see some men working. Now I don't know what they used that snow fencing. Anyhow, that's what it looked like to me, snow fencing, and it was in a big row. Now there were three guys there. Two of them would help get that row of snow fencing up on one guy's back, and he would carry it all by himself over, and they'd load it on a truck. And it just seemed funny to me, where there were so many of them, why didn't one guy get on each end of it and carry it? But no, they'd have one guy get it on his back, and he did all the carrying. And their trucks over there, that old truck was powered by, I guess, steam. Anyhow, they had a furnace onto it. They burnt wood, and that give them the power. It looked awful antique, I'll tell you for sure. And I think they had nothing but hard rubber tires on the darn thing. I did when it wasn't in Tokyo. I don't remember where it was, but it come up and snowed to beat the band. The fact is, the ship got white with snow, and it seemed awful funny to me. You sitting out there in all that water and snowing, but it sure did. And then we left there. Well, while we was over there, we was out on maneuvers, and one of the ships broke down, and they decided they was going to tow it into port. Well, it took a long time to get the lines back to the ship. Fact is, they lined two ships up, one in front of the other one, going to use two of them to pull the dead one. And they had two lines from each ship that was probably 2 inches in diameter, and they pulled them in two. So they abandoned that job, and whatever was the matter with it, they got it going again. But that was quite a deal. Other than that,
You come home from there then, or?
yeah, after we got through there, we started back. We thought we was going to go across the equator, but they got down there and there was a typhoon around the equator, and then they rerouted us and we went on to Pearl Harbor. And I spent some time down there. We wasn't supposed to get off the ship. You had to have so many points to get off. But at the last minute, all the reserves, they let us off the ship and sent us home for discharge. And I got discharged at Norman, Oklahoma.
Hey, what have you done since service?
What have I done? Well, when I come home from the service, I went to work on a ranch up north of Havensville.